Alrighty, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for clicking on today's video. Today we're going to be talking about FatGirlFlow, who, if you're not familiar, we just talked about her recently. She was the person that had the blog that was very upset about the person that wanted to lose weight, and then proceeded to write on that blog that, well, this was their partner, proceeded to write on that blog that they were very happy that they were not able to wipe themselves after going to the bathroom. And so that's kind of the person that we're talking about. Today, what we are going to be focused on is, oh, look, I'm back. We are going to be talking about a Q&A that she did recently on her Instagram page. And it's kind of illuminating. I think it goes into, it kind of shows you what some of these more extreme, I guess you could say, health at every size or anti-diet, I guess you could say anti-diet influencers are like. So this is the first story from that kind of bunch of stories with the Q&A. And it goes on to say, okay, with all the hubbub around weight loss season, I thought I'd do a little I'm a diet dropout AMA. And so ask me anything about fat liberation, anti-diet, ableism, influencer culture, etc. Now, I wanted to feature this one first because I do feel like this shows where a lot of this stuff I do agree with, right? And so this is a question from someone, says how to approach coworkers who won't stop talking about body size, diet, weight during lunch, right? And so I don't know if they're talking about this person's diet, weight, size, or whatever during lunch. I think if people are just talking about that, I mean, I don't think that those people should get in trouble at all. But if they are talking about a specific person's size or whatever, saying they need to lose weight, I just don't think that that's right, right? So she goes on to say, I cannot emphasize this enough. Go to HR. It is what they are there for. Challenging your work relationships by handling those conversations yourself is not your responsibility, nor should it have to be something you have to worry about at work. HR can work to help educate people about the reasons diet talk in the workplace is inappropriate. As a person with an eating disorder, I would consider it a massive favor if someone brought this to HR. So again, I can see why someone would write that, especially if someone's talking about their weight. But the issue I have is that just because someone is talking about weight, I don't think that it feels like a lot of times people that are in this space, they feel like everything is about them, right? And so like if another group of coworkers are talking about their weight and the fact that they want to lose weight and the fact that they're not happy with how they look or whatever, that should not be an attack on you. And that's like, that almost boils down this whole issue where it all started from, right? It was Rosie was talking about the fact that she had to lose weight because she was sick, that she wasn't able to literally wipe herself, right? And then people took that as her saying that if you are so large that you can't, you're disgusting, and she thinks that you're nasty, right? Which was never said. And again, so that's kind of what it feels like is happening here with this question. So speaking about the HR issue, this is some people had something to say about that, and I thought it was interesting the way that she responded.
Okay, so a lot of people have messaged me and said, I don't think going to HR would work about fat phobia in the workplace. I just quickly want to plug my Full Circle Body Liberation course. We talk about the workplace. It's only $20 now. I'm going to link it. But what I want to say is that you're right. Going to HR and just being like, people are talking about dieting and it makes me sad isn't going to work. You have to use language that...
It's not going to work because I think most people, especially if it's, again, like maybe I misread it because I thought it was like people talking about this other person, which I think is wrong. But if it's just people talking, like most people aren't going to hear that and think to themselves, wow, this is such a huge issue that we need to spend resources and money and time on. They're going to say, well, then you need to take yourself out of those conversations. Like that's the easiest thing to do. I don't know.
HR understands, raises red flags for them, and respects. You have to say things like, this feels ableist. You have to say things like, when people are discussing this, it feels like fat phobia. It could be triggering to someone with an eating disorder, with a medical condition. You have to talk about these things in a way that corporations, that your corporate overlord will actually hear.
So it seems like this course just teaches you to be the person that no one wants to talk to or hang around. This next question is interesting. So, do you have any health problems that would improve with weight loss? And then she goes on to say, I think there is a belief, even among people who follow me, that I have always been fat. I mean, I don't know. I think that makes sense, especially with how adamant you are about this stuff. Like, I don't know, makes sense to me. But I digress. I have not. I have a restrictive eating disorder called ARFID. So if you're not familiar with that, I looked it up for you. So this is WebMD. What is ARFID? Avoidant Restrictive Food Intake Disorder is an eating disorder. If you have it, you'll limit the amount and type of food you eat. Doctors sometimes call ARFID selective eating disorder. That's because you'll only have a few foods that you think are okay to eat. Sometimes people with ARFID will also only eat in certain ways, such as eating foods in a certain order. If you have ARFID, it may cause you to not want to eat, not worry that something bad might happen if you eat, such as choking or throwing up, avoiding eating foods that don't have a certain color, taste, texture, or smell. If you worry about eating and don't eat enough because of ARFID, you may affect your health in lots of ways. You may lose weight from not getting enough calories. You might not get all the nutrients you need from your diet either. And then it kind of just talks about, it's a pretty long article, right? So that's ARFID. So, she says that she has this. And so, moving on. So I've been thin for large parts of my life. I am more holistically healthy in my fat body than I ever was in my thin body. And then she goes on to say, I am diabetic type 2. I was pre-diabetic for 15 years, and coincidentally, I became diabetic while taking Ozempic. I had high blood pressure for a while, but it has improved after several years of reestablishing a fun relationship with moving my body. And so this is interesting because, again, this is someone that does have type 2 diabetes, and we know for a fact that if you do lose weight, that really helps that issue. And it just feels like it feels like the blind leading the blind almost. And I know that might sound kind of harsh or mean, but it's like, it's such an obvious, like most people would see that and be like, yeah, clearly maybe losing weight is a good idea. And I think a lot of this stuff is like people are so afraid because maybe they've had bad experiences, but like I genuinely do think that you can lose weight in a healthy way. It does not always have to turn into this extreme thing where it's like you're cutting out everything that you enjoy and you feel like it's like so impossible, right? And so it's just very interesting that she has type 2 diabetes, but then she almost feels like, no, that wouldn't help if I lost weight, when it's like clearly most people would say, yes, that would probably help that situation. This one was really interesting to me. So it says, any tips to stay in recovery while having to make drastic diet changes for medical reasons? So she goes on to say, I have so much to say about this. Remind yourself that this is a choice always. You could choose to eat a thing that makes you sick, but you don't because you want to honor your body and respect it. You are working with your body, not against it, and that's awesome. Keep in mind, recovery is not linear, and it's okay if things are hard sometimes. If you heard that, I feel like you could plug in losing weight, right? Because if you are consistently overeating and you have got to a point where your weight is causing you problems, and then making sure you're in a deficit or not eating so much will make you feel better, and now you're no longer, right? You're choosing to no longer eat those things because they are making you sick, right? Because you have so much excess body fat, then it's something that you should honor, right? It's just so interesting that once weight is in it, it's like, oh no, there's almost no reason ever that you should do this because that's wrong and bad. And if you do it, you're like, you're a bad person, or you're doing something wrong, or you're no longer with fat liberation or body positivity. Here she talks about taking Ozempic. So this question, I'm curious about your experience with Ozempic. What made you decide to try it? When I started therapy for my ED, I completely stopped trusting doctors. I was pretty traumatized by a lifetime of doctors not picking up what was happening when I was a kid. I didn't go to the doctor for a very long time. In 2018, I made a decision that I would go to the doctor and be as honest as possible and trust that they would know what was best for me. My doctor recommended this drug. She had samples that could help my pre-diabetes. I took it. I no longer see that doctor. Interesting, because it just feels like she's been preaching this whole like anti-diet, don't go to the doctors aren't there for you for so long. But then like when it was really something that was really concerning to her, she still decided to go and seek that care. again, this is like stuff that you see often of people, like, I don't want to call her a grifter, but like people that will say all of these things that this is what you should do. You should do this. You should do this. But then when it comes to the brass tacks and like things are going on with them, they go do that thing that they tell people they shouldn't do. Here we have someone saying, I was just diagnosed as pre-diabetic and I'm having a hard time not spiraling. Any advice? And then she links this health sheet, but it says, I have a very different perception of prediabetes than I used to. Knowing what I know now, I would have not accepted treatment for prediabetes. Again, this is someone that just said that they have type 2 diabetes. And so they were probably pre-diabetic. And the reason that doctors bring this up is because it's easier to treat stuff sooner rather than later. So the earlier you find these things, the better it is to make those decisions, to make those changes before this disease or whatever it is that you would end up getting diagnosed with gets any more bad. And so it's just so interesting. It's almost like this is like medical denialism, saying that like, oh, I choose to not believe in that while still dealing with the effects of diabetes, right? She's diabetic. It's stuff like this that really does scare me, that I just don't understand what the reason here is at all. Do you alter your diet for your type 2 diagnosis? I just got diagnosed myself a few months ago. Mostly no. However, my body is more sensitive to sugar now, and I get a bit shaky if I say have a soda for breakfast and nothing else. So I have listened to those cues, and I think that's led to a minor shift. I love to eat. I eat when and what I want. I try to avoid things that give me a tummy ache. I deeply suggest seeing a Hayes-informed nutritionist if you're struggling with your diagnosis. I love Free State Nutrition. So again, it's just so crazy to me to have this disease that for the most part, for most people, right, it's something that you can immensely help through diet and exercise. And to just be so almost anti-helping that thing is just so strange to me. It's like, again, it's like putting your head in the sand and just refusing to do anything that has anything to do with maybe losing weight because you have decided that losing weight is wrong and bad and morally it makes you a bad person. I just think that genuinely is a pretty dangerous thing to think. So this question here says, how do I manage the fact that everything I use breaks under my weight without spiraling into dieting?
It took me a long time to feel even like moderately not ashamed about this. And the first time I realized it like super wasn't my fault, I was rocking my niece in my grandmother's old rocking chair at my folks' house and it crumbled underneath me. And I was so sad because I was like, oh my God, I just broke this heirloom rocking chair. And my mom came in and was just like, what a piece of shit. What a terrible rocking chair. I can't believe that happened. Are you okay? And I just like replay that in my head because the truth is it's not you. It's not you. Furniture is made like I sold furniture. I promise you it is made like fucking garbage.
It's so interesting because like, yeah, I mean, there are some things that are made poorly, but like the vast majority of stuff is not made to accommodate someone that is 400 plus pounds. And again, is that like the problem of the furniture? It's just so strange to me to have all of these cues, all of these outside things that are going on that are saying like, hey, the weight that you're at now like is genuinely unhealthy for you and it's causing a lot of problems out in the outside world as well, to just again put your head in the sand and say like, nope, it's everything else, literally everything else around me is the problem and not me.
It's not you. It's just not you. Everyone's breaking this shit. It's fucking terrible.
So again, like I feel like that's just oversimplifying it. Like, yeah, people break stuff, right? Like when I was at my heaviest, I broke quite a few chairs, to be honest. One of those like plastic ones, I ended up breaking like a metal one, but it was kind of rusted. So like that does happen and it is embarrassing, but I can say now that I haven't broken a piece of furniture in a really long time. It's not something that I really have to think about, right? And there can be argue like, yeah, we could make, furniture better or whatever, but like if you're getting a cheap piece of furniture, it is what it is. Like you can't expect much from that, right? And so again, it's just so interesting, completely taking the blame off of yourself 100% and putting it on everyone else. Like, yes, there are things you can talk about, like, hey, furniture needs to be a little bit better, all this stuff, but it doesn't take away from like, hey, maybe I need to look inward as well and focus on myself. Like, that's always something that could be, it just blows my mind to completely take all of the blame off of yourself and say it's literally everyone else but me. But again, I just wanted to share that Q&A. I thought it was interesting, kind of getting into the mind of someone that's more on the extreme side of health at every size. I would love to know what y'all think down in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.